See, when the banker lent 52 cards into circulation and said, "I want each one of you to pay me 1 card interest," well, that's 4 more cards. So the 4 players have to pay back 56 cards, but there's only 52 cards in the game. And that's what's going on here in the banking industry. The bank creates 10 billion out of thin air and lends it out at, say, 6% interest. You and I go in there and we borrow the money along with thousands of other people. All of us buy, sell, and trade, and when it comes time to repay our loans, the banker is going to collect his 10 billion, but you've got to have 10 billion plus 60 million out there. You've got to have 60 million extra in circulation to pay the interest. So those that are short and unable to pay back will have their collateral foreclosed on. The use of fiat currency and paper money will always end in depression, every single time, without exception. What we're going through now is only unique in that it's all of the countries in the world going bankrupt simultaneously. In recorded history, that's never happened before. Bankers will tell you,
well, basically the problem that we're facing today is the meltdown of the housing bubble.
Friends, who do you think created that housing bubble? It was the banks, and now the bankers are saying,
give us the power and we'll print more money to fix this problem that we created.
What? Excuse me? I don't think that makes a hell of a lot of sense. I liken it to going down to the local brothel and getting a dose of gonorrhea, and then going back to the brothel for a cure. If that's not a good example of insanity, I don't know what is. And what we're witnessing today is the meltdown that happens until we reach the bottom. And we're not going to reach the bottom until the housing bubble reaches the bottom. And when is the housing bubble going to bottom out? Well, if we left it alone, it would probably bottom out in about 30 to 60 days. But we're not going to leave it alone. We're going to tinker with the economy. We're going to go into bailouts. We're going to go into all kinds of legislation, and the politicians are going to act. And when they act, they're going to preserve housing prices as high as possible for as long as possible, so that they can delay reaching the bottom for as long as possible. Some say we're being governed by crazed lunatics, but they're clearly not lunatics at all. They may be crazed, but they're doing this intelligently and intentionally. They've got a game plan and an end result in mind. They're collapsing the world economy so they can meld us all into a one-world government. You can't have a one-world currency if Iran refuses to give up the rial, so you can have another guess as to why tensions are high more often than not lately. And when we take a look at the legal definition of property and examine the legal consequences of who really owns things, we discover that it's something quite different to what we actually practice out and about on Oxford Street. There was a time in the West when we used to own stuff, but that's not the state of the law today. Something has happened, and we should take a look and see if we can identify the seminal moment when property and property rights were divested from us and replaced by the first planks of the Communist Manifesto, calling for the abolition of all right to property. Not the establishment of property, not the free use of property, not the total, absolute, undiminished right to dispose of property in any damn way you want, but a controlled modality of the use of property. They now tell us how to use it, where to use it, when to use it, and how much it's going to cost us to use it. They'll let you call it yours, but they'll tell you what you can and can't do with it. Looking at Bovier's 1914 Law Dictionary, on page 2750, property comprehends every species of title, in chote or complete, legal or equitable, and embraces rights which lie in contract, executory as well as executed. Property in the strict legal sense is an aggregate of rights which are guaranteed and protected by the government, and in the ordinary sense it indicates the thing itself rather than the rights attached to it. The term property embraces every species of valuable right and interest, including real and personal property easements, franchises, and herediments. What the hell are we talking about here? What the hell does fiat money have to do with property rights? You just hang in there. It's all going to come together like one of your granny's knitted blankets. Property means you own something to the exclusion of everyone else in the universe, and the word universe is used in the definition in Bovier's. If Bob Almighty himself can take it away from you, you don't own it. And what we're talking about here, though, is the subject of property. That's not the actual physical thingy, but rather your right to use it. You can have a physical thingy, but if you don't have the right to use it, you don't have property. Referring to the historical development of the law relating to chattels, That's the stuff like your big screen TVs, your shoes, dresses, furniture, and whatnot. And it's said that possession is prima facie evidence of ownership. So when you're in possession of the Hertz car, that's prima facie evidence of ownership. It doesn't mean you own it, but it makes it look like you own it. When you rent that Hertz car, you have a property right. You don't own the car, but you have a right to use it. And if I come along and interfere with your property right, that is your right to use the rental car, well, that would be theft. That would be taking of your property against your will and over your objection without your consent. Now, once you've paid your rent, even Hertz can't take that rental car away from you. However, once your week is up, they don't have to rent it to you again, or they can double the price if they like. Your right has expired, but you can buy a new one. And you'll find this with credit cards too. You've got a credit card and you use the credit, and one day the credit card company sends a notice telling you they're going to double your interest from 15 to 30% starting next month. You get incensed.
But I've made all of my payments, and all of them on time. What a bunch of c***s. I've been a good customer.
Oh, they're not denying that. But that's not the issue. The issue is they want to double the interest rate, and if you don't want to pay the 30% interest, they'll take it back, and you can go and do business with someone else. That card isn't yours. Oh, I know you use it. It's got an approximation of your name on it. But as a matter of law, if you were to take a look at it, you'll find out that the bank is the owner. You're just the holder in due course. You're using their card, their credit, and their money.
But this is my money.
No, I don't think so. The state sets up the rules and regulations for how these franchises are going to be used. They're just like my daddy did with my mountain bike. You can ride your bicycle over there, but you have to make your bed, take out the rubbish and feed the dog. And if you don't do that, I'll take your bike away from you for a week. Right? You see, that actually tells you who owns the bike, who actually owns the franchise, who actually owns the credit card and the credit in that account. Let me give you a sense of how much we do own. As I said earlier, we used to use gold and silver coin as the foundation of our monetary system. We did have paper out there in circulation, but you could take a £20 bill into the bank, put it on the counter and walk out with a £20 worth of sterling silver. In the process of doing that, we had full convertibility between precious metals and paper. However, the gold and silver standard has now been done away with, and there was an important reason for doing that. They wanted to install the first planks of the Communist Manifesto. To do that, you've got to take away the people's ability to pay, and reduce them to the necessity of discharge. Now those are legal terms, and the difference between the two is that one of them abolishes and extinguishes debt, property for property, and that's payment in gold or silver coin, and the other, the use of the £20 note, just moves the debt from one person to the next. Now the US Supreme Court offers the most accessible explanation here. When a debt is discharged, it continues to exist, though it's divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. A debt paid is extinguished, it is terminated, it is absolved. A person who accepts the discharge agrees that there is a disability that he accepts as a condition of the discharge. That disability that he accepts is the loss of his property, the loss of this property right, and he loses both the money and the product or the service. He accepts this disability voluntarily in exchange for the profit that he makes on the transaction. Now, I know that might be a little esoteric, but let me explain it to you in simpler terms here. Daddy Anti-Terrorist decides to send little Timmy Anti-Terrorist to the shop for some groceries, and he gives little Timmy a note, and it goes a little like this. Dear Barry, please give Timothy a pint of milk, a loaf of bread, and a packet of Dunhill cigarettes. He'll sign it, Daddy Anti-Terrorist, and he'll add a little P.S. It'll probably say something like, I'll pay you when I see you. Timmy Anti-Terrorist takes the note over, and he hands it over to Barry the shopkeeper. Barry takes the note, puts the shopping together into a bag, and gives it to little Timmy, who then walks straight home. Now a legal question comes up. When little Timmy leaves Barry's shop and he's walking home, who owns the bread, the milk, and the cigarettes? Have you ever thought about that? Barry doesn't have the bread and milk anymore. He gave it to little Timmy. It's gone. but he hasn't been paid. Now, little Timmy is in possession, and we see in Anglo-Saxon administration that possession is 9/10 of the law. And then there's TheAntiTerrorist. Could he be the owner, despite the fact that he's not in possession and hasn't paid for it? Now take a few moments and just come up with the answer for yourself. Who's got the best claim to this property? Who actually owns the groceries at this point? Now, if you thought that little Timmy owns the bread and milk, that's incorrect as a matter of law, because Timmy is an agent. Not only is he an agent, but he's also underage and doesn't have the capacity for ownership. If you think Federal Express or DHL owns your package while they've got it in transit, you're mistaken. They're in possession, they may hold it. They may be the holder in due course, but they're an agent, and agents don't own property. So Timmy is out of the game. Now, if you think Barry still owns the groceries because he has the note, and if Daddy doesn't pay him, he can sue on that note, it's true. Barry can take my daddy into court, and he'd be successful, but he's not in possession. He voluntarily gave it away. He may be entitled to exemplary damages or punitive damages or something like that, but he's never going to get his bread and milk back because he alienated himself from it. Now, alienation has a legal definition. It's the way we change ownership of property, and Barry has done that. Well, that only leaves one guy left, doesn't it? There's only one other person involved in this transaction, and that's TheAntiTerrorist. I know. The idea that Daddy owns the bread is pretty preposterous coming right out of the chute. But the moment that Barry transferred the bread and milk by alienation to Daddy's little agent, Timmy, at the threshold of the shop, as a matter of law, in that moment, TheAntiTerrorist became the owner of the bread and milk. Now, it's true he has a debt to Barry, and it's true that Barry can sue on that debt, and it's true that Daddy is liable for the debt. There's no doubt about that. But the bread and milk belongs to Daddy forever. The transaction's been made, and that's the end of the argument. Why? Because he issued the note. That's the way that game is played. And now that we understand who owns what in that scenario, here's another step in the story. So when you go to Costco or Armani and you buy your stuff with those crisp notes you just got out of the cash dispenser, on the face of that £20 note you have in your hand, it says Bank of England note or Federal Reserve note. Did you issue those notes? When you walk out of the store with those goods, whether you like it or not, you are little Timmy. And you may be in possession, but you're an agent. So we know you don't own the goods. And does the store still own them? What do you think, friends? You see, we don't own anything. And why is that? We've never extinguished the debt. We only discharged it. You transferred the note, which is a debt note issued by the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve, to the shop, and they voluntarily accepted it and then alienated themselves from their property, just like Barry alienated himself from the bread and milk, which made the issuer of the note the new owner, under the Uniform Commercial Code UCC 1-103, under superior title. They're not lying to you. It's their money. You can't have private property unless you pay for it, and you don't have any way to pay. And we think we own our shirts, our trinkets, and our knickers, but we never paid for any of it. As a matter of law, it all belongs to the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve. Isn't that just special? Now, intelligent people, insiders, told us years ago that if we keep doing what we're doing, it's going to come back and bite us on the arse. And now it has. And we, and that's you and I, are the proximate cause of our own injury. We did this to ourselves. And that's the bad news. The good news is we can stop doing it to ourselves, and we can start right now, today. And one of the best ways to start educating yourself is to subscribe to one of the underground newsletters. Well, I call them underground, but you can get them online very easily. You can't buy them at the supermarket, and you can't get it from CNN, the BBC, or Fox News, because no one in major media will handle this information. But you can subscribe to the International Forecaster, the Money Changer, or Trends Forecaster online. That's the place to start educating yourself on getting off paper and into gold and silver. After all, wouldn't you like to own something for a change? Thanks for listening.
people better understand that they mean exactly what they're saying. It's a new world order they're trying to create, and they're trying to do so not only without approval or consent of the government in this country, but despite the popular will. This is a straightforward assault by the elitists in this country.